Hey, welcome to Spoiler Country. I'm Kenric. That's Johnny Horsley over there. Today we got a special episode for you. We are going to do a review of The Longbow Hunters by Mike Grell. And then, we have an actual interview with Mike Grell himself that we recorded at the San Diego Comic-Con.
That everybody who listens knows we were doing that because we talked about it for like 5 episodes in a row.
That's right. We are so excited, and we're very excited and honored to be able to bring this to you.
I myself didn't get to do the interview. We had just one do it to not make it so complicated. I held the camera and recorded it.
Yeah.
But it came out so good.
Yeah, and he was a gem.
Yeah, we can talk to him for hours.
Yeah, and he said he'd come back on if he wanted to come back on. So we'll definitely try to make that happen again. Because there's something in the interview that he says that I wish I would have delved a little bit more deeper into and asked him about, but I didn't because, one, because of the setting, two, because I didn't get the feeling that he wanted to go too deep into things because of where we're at and how many, because there was people in line waiting to talk with him to get his autograph and to get commissioned some art from him.
Right.
So we didn't want to take up too much of his time, but we got like 20 minutes with him, which was amazing. And he would have stayed longer. Yeah,
you had to cut him off to get so the people who were waiting could get their stuff signed because he was going to keep going forever, it seemed like.
Yeah, he would have. I think he would have. It was a fantastic time. It was a fantastic interview. It was something that I will remember for the rest of my life.
Yes.
It's definitely a highlight in my comic collecting career.
After we do our review here of Longbow Hunters, we'll kind of re-bring it up and we'll take you right into that. And trust me, you're going to want to listen to it. It's definitely something that he dropped some good little nuggets in there of information that we didn't know, and most people wouldn't know unless they heard it from him.
That's right. Things like what his first actual work with DC Comics was, which is not what is recorded on Wikipedia.
Right.
So it's really neat. It was really a fun interview, and it was a really fun time. I was, for a lack of a better term, I was blessed to be able to do that interview.
You were starstruck, like you were legitimately starstruck.
Yeah, because I grew up I grew up reading his stuff. I mean, he was one of my favorite artists of all time. And then I'm sitting down, and for me, and for you, and for us, this is like these are our rock stars. These are our movie stars.
Yep. Exactly. He's such a nice guy. It's such a pleasure to talk to. So let's go ahead and get into the review of The Longbow Hunters. So this is a book that I've read. I read this book a long time ago, probably about 10 years ago, last time I read this book. And I had remembered what it was about, right? But I just reread all 3 issues, the last 2 issues today.
It's gritty.
And it's gritty. It's a lot better than I remember it being, honestly, because I had forgotten a lot of the subcontext of the story that just come out in it when you read it.
I think when I read it, the first time I read it, I was 13.
Yeah.
So the first time I read it, I did love it. I did. I was like, I can't believe a comic book could be like this and be written like this, because I didn't read The Dark Knight when it came out. Right. I read it 5 years later because it was targeted towards a mature audience, and I was 10 when it came out.
Yeah.
I'm talking about The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
So I didn't read it. So I read it, 5-6 years later. But The Longbow Hunters was my first foray into something that could be targeted towards an adult, towards something that is
a mature setting.
Yeah, a mature setting that had adult themes. And it wasn't like adult themes in like gratuitousness. It was adult themes in real problems, like Ollie wanting to have kids.
And Dinah not wanting to because of what they do for a living.
Exactly. What they do for a living. She doesn't want to bring something like that into the world because we could die at any minute, at any moment. Why would I want to orphan somebody? Right.
They had real world problems that they were trying to address given their nature of what they do, and they discussed it, and there's emotion in what happens, like in the fact that that Ollie kills somebody in this story. It's not a kill for vengeance, really. It's an emotional kill. He sees what's happening, and he takes that life, and there's a lot behind that. And when you get to that point in the story, there's a lot of power behind what happens right there, and that one scene kind of sets the tale for what happens after it. With
what dictates all of Grell's whole run of the series of Green Arrow.
Right, exactly.
Grell actually talks about that in the interview, that scene sets emotion for Ollie for the rest of his time.
Because it runs home with him. It's hard on him. It's not something he takes lightly that happened. It's something that was an emotional response that he has to live with. And Shadow, in the story, Shadow uses that, not only against him, but uses that to get him to kind of see her side.
Right, she was an interesting character. I don't think that DC has done enough with her.
No, they could easily bring her back. I honestly don't know if she came back much more beyond the Grell stuff, but she should have, because she had there's some good stuff that she did, a good potential.
Yeah, she could be the Yang to Black Canary's Ying. I mean, they could be opposites.
Right.
Thinking through it, I'm just saying she could be a a great anti-hero or an even antithesis of what Black Canary represents.
Actually, I just looked it up real quick because I was kind of curious. They did actually bring her back in the 2011 reboot of Green Arrow.
Oh, nice.
And she was envisioned as a former lover of Green Arrow's father and and the mother of his half sister Emiko. So they have done stuff with her. That's good.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I mean, to be fair, I haven't read the newer Green Arrow stuff. I did get the Rebirth stuff, and Grell is doing all of the variant covers, which is amazing.
If you want some good insight on his thoughts on variants, that was a good conversation.
Yeah, that was a great conversation.
So this book, to me, as an artist, it's amazing because the way that Mike Grell captures the feelings and the emotion of the characters throughout the book, it's not done in a regular comic book style. It's not done as you would normally read a book. It's done with this sense of fine art to me. They have these portraits that have a gray tone behind them, and they use white highlights to show the outlines of the characters, and it makes those panels just pop off the page. And it helps build this story. This is more than just a normal story because the artwork is more than just normal comic book art.
Yeah, well, because when you get past the miniseries and then you get into the monthly comic, the art goes back to a normal. I mean, it's always above normal because it's Grell doing the art, but it comes back to a normal Grell comic.
Right.
But Longbow Hunters, you could tell he took his time and he had a definite direction that he wanted to go because it's a completely different style that you're used to seeing.
Yeah, it's stylistic and it blends with the story he's telling. I mean, we talked about this in our Kingdom Come review, how having the art and the writing blend and be so fluid like that helps tell a better story. This is another example of you have this style of writing with this style of art that he used for it blend together to tell a more cohesive, better story than what it would be if it was done in a standard comic book form.
Yeah, I think there's amazing writers out there and there's amazing artists out there, but I don't feel that there's very many that can do both and create a cohesive story because you can't get that kind of cohesiveness out of anybody else because as he's writing the words, he already knows what it's going to be drawn like. Or vice versa, he's drawing it knowing what the literature and what everybody's saying to each other is going to be, you know?
It makes for better placement.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, it can. And I'm not saying that something that Alex Ross draws and Mark Waid writes wouldn't be amazing because it was, obviously. And The Dark Knight, wasn't it Klaus Janson did most of The Dark Knight, not Frank Miller. Frank Miller wrote it, right?
Right. Well,
I think Klaus Janson did
He was the inker on it.
Yeah, he was the inker on it.
I believe so, yeah.
But the point is that you can have amazing art and amazing storytelling be combined. I mean, look at one of my favorites is Copperhead. Right. Amazing art, amazing storyline. Two different people. But it's unique, I think, the cohesiveness that comes in the Longbow Hunters. It's just there's no plot holes really, you know? No,
it's a very tight story. It tells a cohesive, tight story, and it is an example. It's great, like you said, it's a great example of somebody who's telling a story and drawing a story and does it well. There's lots of people out there who write and draw stories, and there's lots of people out there who will only write stories for other people and will only draw stories for other people. But when you have somebody who can do both
at the level that he can do it at,
it's at that level.
That's the difference.
Yeah,
he's an industry icon. You know, me and you were pissed at what the prices that he was giving. To get a Mike Grell autograph at San Diego Comic-Con this year, it was $5. $5 freaking dollars. And then $2 for a COA. That is ridiculous.
Even to go further, he was selling original pages from Shaman's Tears for like $300, which is I can't remember his name, but the guy who was doing the artwork on Batman in '66 was selling his pages for $1,000. This guy, I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking this is a brand new book. You're not a named artist. I mean, you have a name in the industry because you're working on this book, but you're not a huge name in the industry, and you're one of $1,000 per page. But
most likely, you'll never be a Mike Grell.
Yeah, but I can go. I can buy a Mike Grell page. Somebody who was responsible for redefining a character in an industry that was dying and helping bring it back for $300. $400. I mean, I'm sure you can buy a Green Arrow page would cost, more than that. But it's the fact that you could just buy an original art page that looked fantastic for under $500. That's insane.
And if you want to get a picture with them, free. Yeah, I'll take a picture with you.
Unlike some people who we won't name.
Yeah, unlike some people. He should have been out in the middle of that convention hall with the likes of Neil Adams, who had a huge table just to himself, charging an arm and a leg. I'm sure he's a nice guy. I've never met him.
He's amazing artist. He's a very nice guy. I have met him, and he's incredibly nice. He's incredibly thankful for his fans that he has, but he does charge a lot.
Yeah, it's not the point of him as a person. It's the fact that the amount that he's charging compared to what Grell is charging, and Grell should be charging the same as him.
Right.
It really should, because to me they're side by side.
The biggest difference for people is one of them worked on Batman and one of them didn't. and Batman's the big one.
Grell worked on Batman. He says that in our interview too, saying he wants to go. He would love to go back and say sorry for his Batman work because he thought it was subpar.
Right.
How many people are going to say that and admit that?
Exactly. I'm just saying he didn't work on Batman the way Neil Adams worked on Batman. There's a difference there, but still, he's an icon. He was great. The Longbow Hunters is a fantastic read. I mean, it's a very 1980s story. It really is.
It's dated. I was going to say you're exactly right. It's a 1980s story. They talk about crack. They talk about cocaine. That is the number one thing. The view of drug use in the book is very different than what the view of drug use today is. It's definitely dated.
It is, but it's still a good read. I mean, I still rereading it today. I still enjoyed it. Even though it was like, okay, this feels very like a 1980s like cop drama movie, with an archer in it, but it was very well done, very well played out, very well paced. I wasn't.
It's
bored.
a fantastic read. Hey, Die Hard is dated. Die Hard is an 80s movie.
But
you know what I mean?
So good.
But it's still so good. And it's the same thing. It's still so good. And I just can't get enough. I really hope he's able to come back and do some things because that would be fantastic to see. I know he's working on some other stuff like he's doing Sable was from First Comics.
Right, that was Mike Grell's John Sable. Yeah, it was First Comics.
Yeah, but he's got something else in the works right now, and I'm remiss to remember what it is, and I feel kind of bad.
It'd be cool to see him bring back Warlord. His character he created for DC.
It'd be great to see him do Warlord. It'd be great to see him do like a 10-issue run on Green Arrow or a graphic novel.
God, that'd be awesome. DC's
like an OGN of Green Arrow from Mike Grell. Oh my God!
DC's talking about doing more OGNs, so there's a guy right there who wants to do it, who knows what he's doing.
Yeah, and you should see the variant covers that he showed us on his wall were amazing.
Right,
amazing.
We're going to post a video on our YouTube channel of the interview, and in the background behind Kenric, you can see those, one of Green Arrow and Batman and one of Green Arrow and Superman, and they're just fantastic.
So I think we should really just get into this interview because it's just...
I think our thoughts on it are it's a book that any comic fan that wants to read classics and wants to know some classic stories should read, even though it's a dated story. It's if you read The Dark Knight because you want to know the definitive Batman, you should definitely read The Longbow Hunters so you know the definitive Green Arrow.
Yeah, here's the difference. We talked about Kraven's Last Hunt and how great of a story that was. Yeah. And how that should have been a catalyst of the way Spider-Man is today. And it's not. But this story still affects Green Arrow. The way people draw him, the way people envision him, the way people write him, the words that he says, the actions he chooses are still dictated by Grell's run.
Right. The reason why he's become more of a serious kind of a cynic character versus a Archer and a Robin Hood mask that's happy-go-lucky is because of this.
Yep. Exactly.
Without further ado, let's go ahead and cut in and let's listen to the interview. We're gonna come back at the end of it and talk about our thoughts of what the interview was. But sit back, take a listen, and listen to Kenric here talk to one of the industry icons working on Green Arrow. And he talks about a lot more than just Green Arrow, so you're in for a treat.
You never close your eyes anymore when I kiss your lips.
Perfect. In pitch. Nice. This is Spoiler Country. I'm Kenric. And John is holding a camera for us. We're here with Mike Grell, an industry icon.
Hi, guys.
We really appreciate you taking the time out with us today.
I'm not taking time out at all. I'm drawing while we talk.
Yeah, he's drawing as we go through this. It's been really nice. So let's just get right into it. You've been in the industry from, 1972, I want to say?
73.
73?
Yeah, 44 years.
And you started with Superboy and the Legion of Super Friends, correct?
Not quite. My first job was Aquaman.
Oh.
An Aquaman backup in Adventure 435.
Aquaman backup in Adventure 435.
Yep, as the Undersea City Sleeps. By Steve Skates, who was heavily into the letter S. And my first regular assignment, though, was Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes.
Right.
Not Super Friends.
Oh, Superheroes. Sorry. I did Super Friends.
That's okay.
I'm a child of the 80s, so the Super Friends was a big part of my childhood.
I know. You are a child of the 80s.
Yeah.
I've got underwear older than you.
You probably do.
I'm probably wearing them today. Do these say poo in the back? I'm pretty sure there's poo back there someplace.
So, when did you come up with the concept for the Longbow Hunters?
That was actually pretty easy. I had already done Green Lantern and Green Arrow in the 70s when Denny O'Neil resurrected the character. I got a phone call from Mike Gold, and this was several years after I had left DC to go out and make my fortune
Like First Comics and stuff?
Yeah, First Comics, Pacific Comics, create her own stuff. And Mike Gold had been my editor at First Comics, and then he switched over and was working at DC. I got a phone call from Mike saying, look, what would it take to get you to come back to work over here, bury the hatchet? He said, is there any character that you like well enough to bury the hatchet? And I said, actually, truthfully, I said, I always thought that I had done such a crappy job on Batman in the 70s that I'd love to give it another shot at it. But I had just had dinner with Frank Miller the week before, and Frank told me his whole idea for The Dark Knight. I said, when Frank's done with The Dark Knight, you can put a period at the end of the Batman sentence for the next 20 years.
Right.
So far, I'm off by 10 years and counting, right? And Mike Gold said, well, what about Green Arrow? And I said, Green Arrow's always been my favorite comic book character. Still is.
Yeah, he's great.
And he said, well, think about this. Green Arrow as an urban hunter. And that was it.
Yeah.
That was it. I was hooked and sold right then and there.
You know, I bought that book the day it came out in 1987. I was 13 years old. And that was my first book that I bought that was more of an adult themed. And
yeah, you were 13, so
yeah,
it explains a lot.
Yeah, and it was, reading it, I didn't know comic books could be like that. And it made a big impression. So then I went back and read The Dark Knight, and it was like, wow, there's a whole different genre of books here that I didn't even know existed in the realm of the characters that I already knew. You know? Yeah,
it was an era where everybody was experimenting and intentionally pushing the envelope to see how far we could go, and in many cases what we could get away with.
Well, I like the fact that you made your characters flawed and had real concerns, like wanting to have kids and the other one not wanting to have kids, and because of what they do for a living.
Right.
And
the relationship between Ollie and Dinah was always so super strong. They had the probably the greatest sexual relationship in comic books.
Right.
Even though it was always more or less implied up until the point I took it over, and then it became, forget implied, let's go straight for overt.
Yeah.
And it paid off. The kinds of things that I wanted to do with the character, in order to make those changes that I wanted to do, it was necessary to show the depth of that relationship in the first place, so that when the moment comes in Longbow Hunters where Ollie finds Dinah strung up from a forklift in a warehouse, he has a choice. He can shoot the knife out of the bad guy's hand, because he's already done it in the story. But that's not what he does. What he does is he shoots the guy square through the heart. Right. Because the son of a bitch just deserved to die.
Right. He intentionally killed him because he was getting ready to.
Right. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't because it was just self-defense or in defense of Dinah. It was because he made that choice and that decision to kill. Now, I wanted to do that specifically to bring about that change in the character, because when Denny O'Neil had written the character, there was a story where Ollie accidentally kills a guy and he goes off his nut, shaves his head, joins a monastery, withdraws from society, and swears he'll never ever take another human life. Well, how are you going to have an urban hunter running around with a bow and arrow who's not willing to shoot people, right?
Taking on the mob.
Right. So I needed to do that, but I also wanted to do it in a way that wouldn't be a throwaway. You know, so many stories that you read, revenge stories especially, you meet the hero, you meet the wife on page 2, on page 3, the wife is dead. Right. And from there on, he just tracks people down and slaughters them. Right.
That's very similar to the Punisher, right? Every time they go back to his backstory, you see the wife for a minute, and then it's the scene where they're dying.
Yeah, she had more lines in the flashbacks than she ever had in the real story.
Right.
That doesn't carry the weight. It doesn't carry the weight.
Right, you don't get invested in the character. When you get invested, then you want to know what's going on, and then when you do something like kill her off, then they're like, "Oh my God, I want this guy dead."
Yeah, I had a personal problem writing the Sable story where I killed his family off.
Yeah.
I mean, it was wrenching because I had already lived with these people in my brain for a year and a half, and I had written and drawn several issues before I ever got around to, okay, this is where they get killed,
but you've raised them basically. You've created these backstories that made them what they are and the decisions they made.
Right.
And then you got to put them in this situation they can't get out of.
Right.
It's a tough one.
Right. And so with Green Arrow, what that enabled me to do was carry things a bit farther, to explore the nature and the effect of violence on people's lives.
Yeah.
His own violence affected him in ways that he never expected, and it's like I've done in Sable, where Sable gets shot in one issue. He's not all healed up and fine in the next issue.
Right.
He's still. He's not only got a scar from a bullet wound, but he's walking with a cane, right?
Right.
It's stuff like that really happens in real life, and in the case of Ollie and Dinah, what I did was instead of throwing it away and just passing it off almost as if it never happened, their relationship goes from one of warmth and intimacy and terrific sex to the point where she can't stand to be touched.
Right.
And he's having his own issues because he's made that choice to kill, and I compared it in the series to stepping off a cliff.
Yeah.
You can't unjump. Once you jump,
you're going.
You're going down. You can change your mind all you want, but sorry, you're going down.
So creating this reality, or trying to keep it more steeped in realism, is that why you changed it from Star City to Seattle?
Yeah, that was one reason. Getting out of Star City was my way of never having to deal with any of the superhero backstory when I featured.
That's one of my favorite parts about that series.
Yeah, when I featured Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, it was as Hal Jordan, not as Green Lantern.
Right.
There were no bug-eyed monsters from outer space, no superpowers. Honestly, Ollie was the only guy who put on a funny suit and went out and fought crime.
Yeah.
And I wanted to move him into the real world so I could do real world based stories. And the fact is, I'm a small town kid from a little dinky town in northern Wisconsin.
Right.
I grew up 100 miles north of Green Bay. The only cities I ever lived in, New York, Chicago, and Seattle, where I was living at the time.
Yeah.
I had already done New York as a backdrop for Sable.
Okay.
Chicago is a great place for food and music.
Right.
But as a setting for a story, it's too far removed from just about everything.
Well, we're from Seattle, so it was really neat to see it portrayed that way.
Okay, well, then you very well understand the reason for the hood.
Yeah.
It rains a lot.
Yeah. 9 months out of the year.
Not 9 months. I lived out there for over 30 years. And I'm here to tell you, it doesn't rain all the time.
Well, we try to keep people away from moving there, so we always tell them 9 months.
I know. It's more like from September through
like March,
July.
Yeah. So, about 9 months.
Yeah. Come to think of it, this is funny. I spent the first 2 weeks in Seattle trying to buy an umbrella.
Yeah.
They don't sell umbrellas in Seattle.
Only tourists use umbrellas in Seattle.
Exactly. I had come from New York, and when it rains in New York, there's an umbrella stand on every street corner.
They're doing that more and more now.
Right. So So, you could buy a $2 umbrella that was good enough to get you to the next corner to buy another $2 umbrella, right? And so 2 weeks I'm going into every store, nobody sold umbrellas, and my buddy said, look, if you really want an umbrella, what you have to do is you go to the biggest department store, which is the Bon at the time.
Right.
And you go to Lost and Found and you say, excuse me, I lost my umbrella. They say, what did it look like? You say black. They'll bring out a box with 2 or 3 umbrellas in it. There's bound to be a black one in there.
That's a great idea.
You pick the one that you like and you go home. And I swear to God, that's how I got my umbrella. And within 2 months, I had lost it, mislaid it, and never found it again.
Went
Because
back.
who needs it, right? It finally dawned on me that it's not that Seattleites don't mind the rain. It's
Right.
that they're totally unaware of it.
Yeah.
Completely oblivious. That played to my benefit here a couple of years ago. I did Dragon Con. And the night we drove in, we're checking into the hotel. Parking was off-site about 3 blocks away, and there was a hurricane off the coast coming in, and it was bands of rain.
Yeah.
So it would be 10 minutes of downpour, 5 minutes of break, 10 minutes of downpour, and on like that. And I was walking back from the parking lot, and I was almost, I'd say, half a block from the hotel, when it dawned on me that it had been raining for the last 2 blocks.
You didn't even notice. It's the Seattle coming out in you.
Yep. And when you see people in the Midwest dashing for cover when it starts to sprinkle,
Right.
you go, the power I wield. I don't have to run from the rain. It runs right off.
So I got just one more question for
Sure.
you, and then I'll let you get going on your stuff. What is your feelings on variants? There's always a lot of people talk about the amount of variants that come out compared to what they did in the 80s, if hardly any variants ever came out in the 80s. And now it feels like in 2014, they did The Death of Wolverine. There was 23 different variants for each cover.
Okay, that was excessive.
Yeah.
And anytime you're trying to create a false collectible
Right.
by doing 23 different covers, you have to have them all. That comes back to bite you in the butt.
Yeah.
It just really does, because the reality of it is that anything that exists in an edition of 100,000 or more,
Yeah.
that's not a collectible.
Right.
If there's 15 or 20 of them, then it's highly collectible, even to 1,000. Now, I shouldn't complain about variants, because right at the moment I'm doing variant covers for Green Arrow.
That's awesome.
And yep, after 25 years, there's
That's
a
a
couple
great
of brand new ones right there. It's fun to be back on the character again. Personally, I'd be happier if that was the main cover,
Yeah.
but I'm not complaining.
I'd be happier if that was the main cover, because that's
Right.
amazing.
But all that said, the false collectible, I guess false collectible,
Yeah.
not to be confused with fake news.
Right.
The false collectible is essentially what destroyed the market. In the 90s, they were selling comic books in plastic bags with
Like the Death of Superman.
collector cards. They sold all kinds of different issues of that sort, but there were guys who were publishing their books that it would include trading cards or a toy or something like that. But
Yeah.
get this, it was only a collectible if you never opened the bag,
Right.
so you never
Right.
read the book.
Yeah, and I
So-
love to read what I buy.
Right. So you never had any vested interest in the story or the character.
Right.
And what happens is that the first time some kid walked into a store and tried to sell back a book that he had bought for more than he paid for it,
Right.
the dealer reaches under the counter and goes, "Kid, I got all you want for 25 cents each. And that thud that you heard was the industry collapsing.
Yeah.
You went from before the collectibles craze, there were 12 or 1500 comics and collectible stores in the country. All of a sudden, there were over 10,000, and right back to 1,200.
That's right. That's right. It was a crazy time.
Yep.
It was a crazy time. Any chance you coming back in Green Arrow and showing these young guys how to do it?
I don't know if I could show them how to do it, but I'd sure like to give them what for one more time.
That would be great, because you're one of the few that did the writing and the art, and I think the cohesiveness of that just really blends well.
It was a great pleasure to work on that book, and I'm very, very proud of it. 30 years since the Longbow Hunters premiered.
Yeah.
Yep. Just passed the anniversary here a few days ago, and I just found out that I've been inducted into the Overstreet Hall of Fame.
It's about time.
And Wizard World Hall of Legends.
That is awesome.
All in one swell swoop.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
That is great. That is great.
And I'm still alive. I didn't have to die first.
We got lots of time left. Well, thank you so
Plenty
much
of time to die, right?
That's right. Thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate
You're welcome.
it.
I had them all.
We're
Thanks,
a fledgling
guys. I
podcast,
appreciate it.
and you made our con. You really did. You made our con.
All right. You can owe me the $20.
Okay. Okay, that was amazing.
That was awesome.
Interview with Mike Grell.
I'm a little sad that it was all you and not me, but I think that decision was a good one based on the logistics of how it was set up.
Yeah. Yeah. We got video.
A video, we got Kaylee here who took some pictures and video for us.
Yes, I did.
Amazing, man. Really super nice.
She spilled the beans that we've been getting about this.
Oh yeah, they've been talking about it all weekend.
They know. We've been talking about it every episode.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This made our con. This
Yeah.
really did.
It
just
really was amazing
such
watching.
an amazing guy.
And he told us he's gonna share it on the Warlord World page and on the Mike Grell fan page, which would be great. So anybody who's coming from those places to listen to us, hi, how you doing? Check us out. We have good stuff.
Yeah, we have good stuff.
He's a great, super nice. He was just so whatever. He's a big name artist, but charges very minimal.
$5 for a signature.
We talked about $5, $7 if you want to see away with that. That's so.
I mean,
for
it's
his caliber.
insane.
Yeah.
And then his drawings are $25 for a full page.
Yeah, for a full
and
page
I've
print.
seen people less who are a lot more full of themselves,
Yeah.
and they are charging hundreds and hundreds, and you can see
Yeah.
that he really is just passionate.
Yep.
And he likes his fans.
I think he
That's-
loves his fans.
Well,
Yeah.
he had full page original art from his Shaman Tears.
I'm not sure.
One of those. But if I'm getting wrong. I never read it, but I know this. I know the story. But he has full pages done for a couple $100.
I mean, it really is. I've seen people have original drawing for $15,000, and I have no idea who they are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think someone of Mike Grell's caliber is somebody who should be selling stuff for that much.
He's an industry icon.
He is, and I would love to see DC put him back on a Green Arrow story.
They should.
Yeah, I mean, he was just, I'm just in shock. I'm in awe of how nice and how amazing, and he's not full of himself. He's just going with the flow. You guys, he's still drawing.
Such a
while
great
you're
talker.
talking.
Yeah.
I
He
mean,
gave us good insight on what he did with Green Arrow, why
Yeah,
he did certain
it was-
things.
He was answering questions before we could ask him.
Yeah.
He had a flow of where to go with it, and he answered 3 questions we didn't have to ask.
Yeah.
So it was great.
Yeah, it was a good time.
So we're on Cloud 9. We're going to go find Greg and Mike from the University Apocalypse and interview them next,
Okay.
and try not to pass out from the excitement.
Yes.
All right.
exciting. Woo!
Okay, we're back. Amazing interview, huh? What'd you think?
Well, I was there, so I loved it. I do have one problem with this interview. I have one little
that?
bone to pick with it. It's the fact that, well, it's 2 little bones. One, that it was you and not me, but we discussed that beforehand. And 2, when I was recording the video, I had to crouch down, and it hurt my knees so bad because I feel so
man.
old. But besides that, it was great. I mean, learning some of those little inside things from him, the fact that he started out by singing his little song, it was great.
He was such a nice man.
Yeah.
He really was. And he was just so, I don't know, man. He just kind of reels you in and doesn't let you go because he just wants to talk and hear from you and have insight. It's neat. It's really neat.
I really hope we have a chance to get him back on the show through one of these remote sessions like this, and have like an hour to just talk with him, because there's so many more questions I want to ask him. Yeah, I want to hang out with him, and I want to ask him some questions, but those questions aren't really about Green Arrow. I want to say, hey, I want to ask him, does he remember my dad? We talked to him a little bit about that when I was asking if he remembers my dad and the story of the Warlord painting. I want to talk to him about like some of the weird stuff he's been asked to draw over the years. Just some just random kind of interesting quips. I'm sure we asked him like 1 or 2 questions. He'll talk for 2 hours,
I want to ask him about that Aquaman issue.
Yeah, I want to get that issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy, because we thought it was Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes.
Not super friends, like you said.
Not super friends, like I said. But I clarified myself. Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, it was funny because he slyly corrected you. It's superheroes, not friends.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm a child of the 80s.
That was
and
great.
then
I really feel like he could have talked to us for another hour and he'd like, okay, let him wait. It's fine.
Yeah, easy. I mean, because I think I was the one who actually brought up the end of the interview, because I felt bad for people that were waiting. Because we had a group of people before us, and we were like, you and I were getting impatient because we had scheduled this, and it felt like they just showed up and did it because they're Hallmark.
Yeah, this Hallmark pop minded. We couldn't really be like, hey, get out of here, pop minded. We're spoiler country.
Right.
They were polite and they were quick. They
were very nice. Yeah, and they were quick. They were much quicker than we were.
They were. They had like maybe 10 minutes or less, and we had.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh man, those guys were pros, and they had really nice equipment.
Yeah.
And here we are with a lapel mic, a GoPro, and a Samsung S8 Plus. I mean, come on.
But
we're doing this interview, but it worked, and it sounds great, and it sounded great, and I hope everybody really enjoyed that interview. I like the fact that he said the reason he gave Green Arrow a hood is because he's in Seattle. Yeah.
I mean, even in the comic, it said this is more attuned to where you're living now. Give him the hood, and it worked. And that hood has now become symbolic with Green Arrow. You don't see him without the hood.
Yeah, because it makes sense, and it looks cool.
He had the hood in Smallville. He has the hood in the Arrow show. He has the hood in all the
so much better
now.
than the Robin Hood hat.
Yep, exactly.
I liked the fact that he did some name dropping. He talked about him and Frank Miller having dinner because he wanted to come back and do Batman, and they said, "How about Green Arrow?" And he was like, "I would love to do Green Arrow. It's my favorite character from DC." Had dinner with Frank Miller. Frank said, "Think of him as an urban hunter." Thus, the Longbow Hunters was born.
Yep.
That right there is some great insight of what you were reading. It was amazing.
And that's kind of what, for me personally, that's kind of what I like to do these interviews or conversations with people for, is to see what clicked in them to make them write the story they wrote or work the way they do. Because that's the insight that I want. I want to know the why of what they're doing, not necessarily how they got into it and stuff. And it's good to know, but why they did stuff. It makes it a lot more fun to me.
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to drive in at. I wish I would have expounded more on when he said about burying the hatchet.
Yeah,
with DC to come back to do Green Arrow, and I didn't pick up on it right then and there, and I also didn't think it would, and then when I did, I didn't think it'd be appropriate for the setting that we're in. So I'm hoping that we can get him back on and have him more like this, and then we can get into things like that.
Yeah, have him tell us what hatchet he was burying and kind of what that was about, because I'd like to know.
Yeah, me too. Not that it's any of our business.
Right.
But it could be significant. It could be, he had a different art direction that he wanted to go with certain characters, or it could be a storyline that he wanted to do, or maybe because he's not afraid to push that envelope.
No, he's not. If you read Longbow Hunters, you'll know he's not afraid to push envelopes. I'm surprised some of those scenes made it through to the book, like the scene when Ollie jumps out of the bathtub and you very clearly see the shadow of his dick.
Yeah.
Like the outline of his balls and penis. Like, yep, that's what that is. I mean,
right.
And they put it out there. I mean, and it's very, it's very subtle, and it makes sense. He's jumping out of a bathtub. He's going to be naked.
Right. This is not for that story is not for kids. And I think Mike Grell as a whole is not meant. I don't think his work is meant for kids.
And it's not that he's risque or that he's, wildly, inappropriate to be inappropriate. He just tells a mature adult themed story.
I think he tells stories he wants to hear.
Yeah. And those stories involve realistic blood and violence and adult themes like drugs and sex and love and kids. And that's not your everyday, or at least your classic superhero story. It's your superhero story with adult themes that you don't normally see, which is now, in today's comics, you see a lot more of that, but not done as cleanly and as tightly.
Right. Because he talks about Ollie's and Dinah's relationship and how sexual it was throughout the years, and he wanted to bring it to a different level, but then he also wanted to break it to be like, these are normal people going through real problems, and this is what happens. Yeah. And they slowly drift apart at some point. One
of the keys of a good storyteller is being able to break your characters and put them back together.
Yeah, well, he talked about I want to say it's in Sable First Comics, when they kill the character's family.
Right.
And he said he had a hard time with it. And I commented, yeah, because you are building that family from the ground up. You've created this backstory that some people might not know, to give them these directions and to tell them to go, this is the problems that present and what is their choice based on how they are and who they are. And when you put them in a position where they're not going to survive, it's hard.
Right, exactly. So I think that's really kind of all we can say about Grell and Longbow Hunters. I really think if you haven't read it, you need to go read it.
Let me say this. If you don't know Mike Grell, it would behoove you, let me put it this way. If you don't know Mike Grell and you are a comic connoisseur, and you collect books of today's stuff, and you love the Jim Lees and the Todd McFarlanes and the Neil Adams and all the other people out there, you need to go back and look at what Mike Grell has done, is doing, and what he's brought before, because I guarantee you Mike Grell is one of the driving influences in Jim Lee's life. I guarantee you Mike Grell is a driving influence in Todd McFarlane's life, because that guy knows how to write a story. He knows how to do the art like you don't. You sit and watch him, and you're in awe of what's coming on the paper right in front of you. It is ridiculous.
The way, for me, the way he's able to consistently keep his lines for like shading with a pencil, like you look at his lines, and it looks like it's a computer drawing the lines because they're all consistently going the same direction with no fail. It's impressive.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And the whole time we're talking, he's drawing a picture.
Yeah.
The whole time, and it's flawless.
He's like half paying attention to the drawing, and it's coming out perfect.
Yeah, I'm sure anybody who is an artist or a budding artist is completely envious of this talent.
Yeah, I am. I'm very much so. Because when I draw, it's like, don't talk to me. I need to focus.
Yeah. So go back, look at his stuff, read his stuff, and see some of the stuff that he did in the 70s. Check out the Longbow Hunters. You'd be doing yourself a huge favor if you read that book. And the thing is, that book was a huge hit when it came out. Huge.
It was. A big enough hit to let Mike Grell take on the ongoing Maxi series for a long time, for several years.
Well, I remember when that book came out, okay, and you couldn't walk into a comic book store without it seeing it on the counter in its own little display case, little display box. And then, of course, their full set of that's on the shelf, and they would sell out. And there was multiple printings of that book.
Yep.
And so it's sad to see it now, because you can go and get I'm sad because I think it should be worth more than what it was. And it might be not worth the money because it did so well and because it sold so well for so long, because it was a seller. John, you know how it is nowadays. A book sells for like a couple weeks, maybe a month, and then that's it. Right. That book was on the shelf and being replenished every month for almost 9 to 10 months, easy, if not over a year.
I don't doubt it.
Because it was just so well received and so well done. And that might be the issue, right? That it was the reason that it's not worth the money, because they sold so many.
Well, I think maybe, but I think the more the issue of why it's not more popular these days as it was back then is because Green Arrow's kind of fallen out of favor. And even though Arrow has the TV show, it's really popular on there, a lot of the people who watch Arrow don't read comics, to be completely fair. And if they did, they wanted to read a good Arrow.
They like Steve Amell's cheekbones and six-pack.
I mean, he's a sexy man, and he's very, very funny and very good at what he does. But let's be honest, a lot of those viewers aren't reading comics. And that's
right. Even though his Arrow is really based off of Grell's Arrow.
Right, exactly.
And the fact that they don't really call him Green Arrow, because Grell didn't want to call him Green Arrow. So they only call him Green Arrow once, and that's what the first book. Yeah. Then after that, it was only Arrow.
Yeah, or they just don't give him a name. They just talk about him in various roundabout ways, which is perfect.
Read that book. Please read that book. Check out his art. Check out his website.
Yeah, read that book, and then let us know if you do read it. Let us know what you think. Hit us up on Twitter, at Spoiler Country, or on Instagram or wherever, and let us know what you think about the book. See, are we right? Are we wrong? Do you agree with us? Do you think we're stupid and you don't like the book? I like to hear it. I mean, you'd be wrong if you think that, but I like to hear it.
I mean, and you can tell us tons of people that are more influential or even better artists than Mike Grell. There ain't many out there.
Yeah, I mean, art's subjective, but you can't deny a legend.
That's right. He's a legend, and he was inducted to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, 2 of them.
Yeah, 2 of them. And it's sad because the industry didn't even tell him. He told us, and he wasn't even invited. Yeah, what is that about?
He found out from a fan.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Or something like that.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a defender of Mike Grell to the day I die.
Oh, me too. Me too. Should we get T-shirts? Defender of the Grell.
Defender of the Grell.
We should make that T-shirt. We should make that shirt.
We should send it to him. That is perfect. He'd probably get a kick out of it.
Nice.
Oh my God. You can draw him as a caricature with his hat and everything.
Yep.
And we can just say, and just underneath it, Defender of the Grell.
Nice.
Oh my God. Let's make it happen. All right, guys. This is Spoiler Country. That was John. I'm Kenric. We are out.